Welcome to Between the Details, the podcast where event planning gets real. I'm Jessica Ralph, owner of Parties a la carte.
And I'm Aaron Lockwood, owner of Lockwood Studios. Each week, we'll be sharing insider tips, honest advice, and behind-the-scenes truth for both vendors and clients.
Welcome to our new episode. We are talking today about AI and what that is doing to the wedding and event industry.
It's a big topic.
It is a big topic.
Yeah, AI, I feel like, is just in every area of our lives already, and it in a short amount of time too. Like it just all of a sudden has like blown up. So I feel like even with some of our other vendors that we've had on, the conversations that we've had, they've already started to like either see the pitfalls of it or how they can utilize it as a tool. So I think it's going to definitely change not just our lives, but the industry that we're in for sure. So
yeah, I definitely think it has its pros and its cons.
For sure.
How do you think it's going to affect photo and video over the next 5 years?
You know, I get people asking me that a lot is like, are you worried about the future of your career and what does it look like? And, you know, I definitely feel like for every industry, there's going to be dramatic changes. So I think a big part of it is also just positioning yourself in an industry or in the part, like say with video production or photography, where you're doing things that aren't easily replaceable by AI. So I think if you utilize it as a tool, which we definitely need to be doing, or else we're going to be falling behind quickly. But I think if you're in, you know, especially like, let's just say in the event space where weddings, corporate events, that type of thing, the personal touch that a human provides in those scenarios can never be replaced by AI. And so I think if you're working with the clients, if you're working with, you know, even the venues that really value the experience that you bring, the personal touch that you bring, like, I don't think AI can replace that. Like, that's not something.
What do you think it will eventually do for photography and videography?
I mean, it's already like, I mean, we use it as such a time-saving device, even for a lot of this stuff that we're doing, just for like, you know, especially when we're doing corporate videos, things like that, where like it can read transcripts, it can like cut down interviews, it can pull social clips, you know, from longer videos. So I think if you really utilize it as a tool and as a time-saving device to make you more efficient, I also think it's really a cool thing to be able to get like creative ideas, you know, from it too.
So you think that'll just keep developing essentially over the 5 years?
It's just going to get smarter and better and faster. I think that when people are trying to look to use it to replace their creativity, then that's when it kind of starts to get like, I think AI already has like a pretty big negative connotation in general. Like people don't trust it, or especially the generations that have gotten like so easily fooled by it, where they see these these funny videos posted or things like that, or like, you know, like there's a bear jumping on a trampoline and they're like, oh my gosh, look what my friend posted. Like there was a bear in their backyard jumping on their trampoline. And then it's like, they didn't realize it was
It's kind
AI.
of crazy what it can make. I mean, that's a little bit the scary part is like, you almost, when you're scrolling, you don't know what's real and what's not anymore. And you have to look for cues and you have to read the comments. And I mean, you know, there's just a lot. I know social media is definitely trying to, on the different platforms, like indicate when something is AI generated, which I think is helpful. But for us in the wedding industry, when our brides are looking at images on Pinterest or Google or different things, I think that's where it's hard. Because it's not indicating that it's AI generated. And the expectation is becoming perfection, essentially. And I think people are looking at these images and they're saying, oh, I want this exact image. And it's like, it's not going to equate to that in real life.
Yeah. And it's hard because I feel like, you know, so much about things these days is like we want less regulation because anytime they start stepping in and, you know, controlling things or whatever, but I think there needs to be some type of level of like, this is not real, this is real. I mean, I know, and again, I would have to fact check this, but I've been told that like when you do generate something through AI, there is code embedded in it so that it indicates that it's AI. Because even think from the aspect of like our justice system where like, you know, what can you start believing now when they can create these super realistic videos where you could put somebody in a situation that is completely fabricated. Yeah. So I think there is things embedded in it that they're able to tell.
But I think you have to be someone in that industry to kind of know that.
Yeah.
Where I think as from a company standpoint, I think companies need to start taking ownership of saying like, we want to make sure people know that these things are AI generated.
So maybe if it's uploaded onto a social media platform, it has a tag or something.
Yeah, I think it should. And I think some of them are asking you as the consumer when you're posting to be like, hey, mark if this was generated with AI or have some component of AI. And I think some people are doing it, but I think that there's others that are not. And they're passing off their work as if they created something that was literally, you know, something they just typed in a box.
Well, I mean, there's whole entire social media profiles these days that are all AI generated.
Yes.
Like whether it's videos or photos or even they're creating people that don't even exist.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I heard recently there was this guy overseas that had created a profile for some like supermodel and she wasn't even a real person. And like millions of people, they were even getting sponsorships and stuff for her to endorse products and other things. And then come to find out it wasn't even a real person.
Yeah.
So
my interaction is more from a standpoint of like Instagram and Pinterest. Mm-hmm. I think on Pinterest, there's a lot of images that are AI generated. And I think people don't understand the cost associated with creating that in real life. And so they're looking at this whole room and they're thinking, oh, that's obtainable because it's on Pinterest. And it's like, from a budget standpoint, it's not obtainable. It also might not be obtainable in the actual space, you know, that they're showing it in because it's AI generated. It's not really taking in the dimensions or, you know, the fact that there's a staircase on that side or there's a little inset on this side. So I think there's some things it's not perfect and it's not catching, but everyone's looking at it thinking like, oh, it's just right here. You can do it, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it makes it difficult.
And that was something that really stood out to me when we had Amanda on, where she was talking about she doesn't even really like to use it for her mock-ups of the spaces and like the lighting and this and that, just because it doesn't take into account like the cords and the trusses and the stands and other things. So then the client sees this AI mock-up that's absolutely perfect, but it's not even realistic what you can do in that space. Like you have to put things on things or hang things from things or plug things in too. Absolutely. So
yeah, I mean, I think we do a lot to try to hide a lot of that naturally, but there is just things that you can't hide. And when it's AI generated, it's not hiding those things. It's making everything perfect.
Yeah.
And nothing is perfect.
Do you feel like that's one of the areas where AI is kind of doing more harm than good?
I think there's great components from AI, right? I think you can have the scheduling, reminders, the automation, you know, helping with polishing your emails or even from a couple or corporate event, you know, polishing your speeches or polishing your vowels, things like that. But I think as a negative, it's just kind of making things too perfect.
Yeah.
And that's not realistic. And I think also the biggest thing for me is it doesn't include what it actually cost.
Right.
And so when someone's looking at that image, they're thinking it's really obtainable. And they're not saying how much does that cost? You know, like it's using, you know, all orchids or all peonies or all, and like, you know, those are
might not even be in season for that or like.
Right. And so they're showing it, you know, and it's like, it's not realistic as to what it actually costs. And so I think that's the hardest part is, you know, and it's also probably putting things that don't exist.
Right.
You know, linens or paint colors or fabric or whatever it is, you know. And so it's not available.
Well, and it definitely can't completely replace the creative process.
Correct.
So whether you still have to feed it the proper prompts or still have an idea of like what you're wanting it to do. I mean, and again, even calling it AI to me is kind of weird because it's not really like thinking on its own. It's only thinking based on the information that it's already been fed. But like to your point earlier, like where is it going to evolve to? So I think that's one of the interesting things that I see already happening, like even just using ChatGPT, is where it keeps track of like all the prompts and the things. And so it starts answering based on prior information. So it'll be like, oh, based on the fact that you run a production studio or you have a podcast studio, here's what, it would recommend. So I feel like it's going to keep on getting smarter and smarter, like to your point with like composing emails and things like that. Like it's going to already know the way that you would phrase things or write things and then correct things, grammar, make grammar corrections and things. So it's, that's a lot. I mean, I feel again, like it just goes back to using it as a tool.
I think it is a tool, and it can't be a complete replacement of everything. You still need the human touch. You still need to have creativity. There's just things that like, I'm not worried about my job from AI standpoint. What I do worry about is paid placements in AI. I think that's going to be dangerous when people start paying to be prompted at the top, because that's probably around the corner if it doesn't already exist, right? And that goes back to...
Well, I mean, look how fast they already monetized it when they said they weren't going to.
Right.
That didn't last long.
Being over automated, not having that human touch. I think for me, it's like I wouldn't want something that's generated all the time to my clients. I want to make sure that we're still putting in the effort to connect and make them feel like we're all a part of it together and a team that's working on this event. But I think, the biggest thing is you don't want there to be like an emotional disconnect.
Yeah. What are some areas that you feel like either from a client side or from a vendor side, like in the planning process? Like what are some things already that you're, seeing or that they can utilize AI for just to help the process?
I mean, I think it helps from a standpoint of like drafting vows or drafting speeches, like I said before. Maybe from a budget perspective, if you're a bride that's not working with a planner, it can give you some numbers. I'd be interested to see what it pulls and tells you.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, it's really should be there to help you polish and make something better, not create it completely for you.
Yeah, for sure. I really utilize it, I would say, the most for research purposes.
Yeah,
and so I think from things like that where you could, hey, I'm having a wedding with 150 people. Like how many bottles of champagne would I need to,
I think those
serve
are
in a
great.
4-hour time frame? Or like it's amazing how fast it can come up with those answers for those type of things. So we talked a little bit about this, but how has it changed the expectations? Like, are people thinking that you should be able to like get things done quicker or respond faster, or have you like...
Yeah, I think everyone just, again, the expectations, for me, it always goes back to the budget, really. Is I think when they're looking at these things, they just think, oh, you should just be able to have that pop up and happen. And I think also like the materials, the size of things, like flowers, and like from that perspective, I also think people just think, oh, you can just answer an email in 5 seconds now. And, you should have responded to me already. And for us, like we try to answer all of our emails within 24 hours. And we obviously, if we're on a wedding, we're not answering our email because or even a corporate event, we're giving that client our full attention. But we get back to everyone very quickly. And I think now with AI, it's almost created where everyone needs immediate responses.
Yeah, and I think in our industry, especially with what you do, I feel like people need that personal response. I think it would be a turnoff if they got like an AI answering service or an AI chat bot or something like that, where in other industries, I think it's perfectly acceptable. And like sometimes maybe like that's all they need is an AI chat bot could answer those questions.
Right.
But I don't think that for...
It's interesting. I feel like this new era of clientele wants both. They want to know you and have personalization with you and connect with you. But at the same time, they want the answer right now. And they want an abundance of information. Yeah. And I do think that comes a little bit from AI, because you can literally type it in and you have all, it's just like literally throws up information at you, right? And so everybody wants this personalized, immediate answers. And that's hard, to kind of navigate and get through, because we all are human. Like we do have lives outside of work. Well, at least I try. But, it's interesting to see how they want the immediate gratification of the response, but they also need it to be super personalized. So it's interesting working with this new generation of couples.
Well, and it's weird to me to think too that it's like, you know, if you think back even like just when computers were introduced and they were like, oh, these are going to save you, like the future work week is only going to be 10 hours long or 20 hours long because computers are going to do everything for us. So I feel like AI, even though it has saved us a lot of time in some areas, now it's just like one more thing that you have to learn and you have to engage with and you have to be aware of and stay up with. So it's just like...
And I think there's so many different AI companies that you're like, okay, which one is the right one and who are you using? And it's, you know, a lot of times they're have different answers. Right. And I also would be curious to know what on the answers, how much of it is actually accurate, right? I think there was somebody was telling me that if you go into your, you know, Chat GPT, you can ask it what percentage is actually accurate of the response that they're giving you.
Really?
And then you can, like, you know, that way, you know, you can like filter and say, okay, this is 60% accurate or 70% accurate. So
now there's going to have to be an AI just to check AI.
Yeah, I mean,
you're going to have to feed everything through something twice just to make sure you're actually getting the proper information.
I feel like there's, you know, because remember, they're pulling all this information from all these different sources, but it's like, who says that source is correct?
Yeah. Or who fed it that information initially? Because even that was like a thing that was happening even with like Wikipedia, because you know, that's a whole source of information. I'm sure ChatGPT and other AIs pull from that source too, but somebody has to initially put that information into that.
Well, source. Isn't that done by people? Like you can like request.
You can submit things and stuff. And then there's even a process where if people have submitted misinformation, then they have to go through a process of like trying to remove it. And so it's a whole nother layer of things, but I don't know. I think it's kind of funny. Like you were talking about using it to mock up forms or different things or whatever. It's like I kind of have this love-hate relationship with ChatGPT where like it'll give me a mock-up and it's like close to being what I want. And then like as I feed it more prompts, it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And it was like I saw this funny video that somebody had posted the other day and it was like the AI was making a sandwich and then he was like, oh, wait, hold on a minute. Can you cut the sandwich in half? And then it like flips it and goes to cut it the wrong way. He's like, no, don't cut it that way. Cut it like that. And then he flips it upside and it was just like kept progressively getting worse. And I was like, I feel like that's exactly what happens to me when I start, you know, so then it's like, I have to go back to like actually doing it from scratch.
I think it depends on what it is that we're using it for. How do you feel about the AI headshots?
We were talking about that earlier. And again, I think it's like, it's one of those things where I think, you know, there's a time and a place for everything. So I think as like, if you're a top executive or a busy professional or trying to represent yourself on LinkedIn, I think it's really important in a lot of those scenarios to have an actual professional headshot done. Because
updated frequently.
And that's the hard thing. I know it's like, you know, it can be, you know, it takes some time and it's an investment, you know, to get that done. But I think is in certain circles or whatever, as soon as people start sniffing out that it's AI, I think it just kind of starts to erode away the credibility of that person and the source. Because then they're like, okay, well, if they've faked this, what else about them?
Well, it is their face. It's just the lighting and maybe their outfit.
And again, a lot of them are really good. I won't deny that. But when I start looking at them and I'm like, okay, like this lighting is not obtainable under that setting. And then you can start noticing that it's like not.
It's probably easier for you to spot it than like the average eye.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know. I just feel like, especially as photographers, videographers, I think we have to be careful about, protecting our own industry. And so I think, trying to encourage people like, oh, just take it with your cell phone and AI can make it perfect. Like,
what was it? Christmas time, all the AI, all my entire Facebook feed became all the moms I knew in the candy stripe outfit or whatever. Yeah. And everybody had generated that image.
Yeah. It's like every holiday now, like all the 4th of July ones and like all that. So no, I don't know.
It's okay to have fun with, but I think as a professional, I always just say like have a professional image.
I agree. And again, I feel like it's along the lines of like the brands that you're aligning yourself with and that you want to work with. Like in our case, a lot of the brands that, we work with, they value authenticity and creativity and like the personal touch and like the experience. So I think if you're, not presenting yourself along that same lines, then it doesn't really align with your brand.
I agree. I think it could be used though for like your logos or helping you build a website or, fine tuning your documents.
For sure.
I think one thing that worries me is how many people are using it to create contracts or to potentially even mark up vendor contracts. And it's like, I think that could be a little bit of a interesting situation where they're utilizing that and it's not a real attorney who's drafting that contract to say like this is
so legally, where is it getting that verbiage?
Correct. Yeah. And is it correct verbiage?
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's something that's a cautionary tale. It's like, don't go and just have AI draft your contract. Make sure you're getting it looked at. And, like I'll sometimes even, from the concierge side of it, like I'll pop a contract up and say like, okay, give me any red flags that you see. And I don't mind that, but I do think it's obviously one-sided. It's looking at it from my side and not from both sides.
That's true. It's always trying to make the person inputting
happy,
asking for it happy. Like it's trying to give you a positive outcome. It's not going to say like, oh no, your contract leaves you wide open to.
Yeah. Or a warning. Like if I'm asking it to read something and it might say like all of these things are bad things and it's just part of the contract.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be interesting to see what it does from that perspective for vendors.
And what access does it have to like legal briefs or, past like cases or things like that? Because I was actually told not too long ago, I was having a conversation with a gentleman who was an attorney, and he was saying he actually used it for his own situation. He had a situation with his neighbor. And so instead of having to hire somebody to go, find all the county ordinances and this and that, he was able to just feed it into ChatGPT. And like being an attorney, he was able to actually like check to see, and it had access to all that. So like, a lot of the information is out there, public information. So it would literally be, county ordinance 27C.A states this, and this. So I guess those are some of those industries where I think, with it being research driven, those jobs are probably gonna go away eventually as it has access to all that. Yeah,
but I mean, at this point, someone still has to type the prompt. So, but I do think it's like you got to make sure you're up on it.
Yeah, it's stuff that like they already had out there. So,
from photography and a video perspective, what do you think that some of your industry peers are relying too heavily on AI for?
That's an interesting one too, because I feel like I've seen where they start feeling like, oh, if we don't embrace this technology, we're going to get left behind. And so I think there's this fear of like somehow needing to incorporate it maybe sooner than they really need to, where I've seen, maybe it's just kind of like overdoing things a little bit, not
too
necessarily.
Much editing?
Yeah, and I start seeing like things in the wedding world where people are posting stuff where they've literally like had AI go through and fine tune like every single image from wedding, and then it starts looking like a little fake again, a little too curated.
Yeah.
So I think, one of the things that a lot of people love about art or appreciate about art is like the little imperfections.
Let's not get crazy.
So,
but yes.
But, like that's what shows the human touch.
No, I mean, we want it to be as perfect as possible, I think, from a planning perspective, but it's also like real life and not everything, every flower is, not completely bloomed, right? And that's part of the beauty of things. So
yeah.
I think whereas when you're looking at AI, it's like everything is so perfect.
So perfect. Yeah. And then I think like when I see it from like a commercial side of things where people are like doing advertising with it and things like that. I mean, I can see that, there's definitely a purpose.
Look at that photo of those two people that were climbing the Empire State Building. Right. And they got proposed to, and every single person like took that flag that they were flying that said something. I don't have no idea what it said, but they took it and then made it a saying for their company.
Right. Yeah.
So that was all AI generated. Yeah. It's crazy.
And look how fast something like that now goes viral.
Literally overnight?
Right.
Overnight. I mean, and it was everything from your average small company, like to larger companies were doing it. I can't remember who I saw post it, but they were major, brands that were doing the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why that reminds me of like certain other ones that I've seen where they've used it to try to like find somebody that was in a video where they like, now they fed this person's image and like within, minutes, the whole world knows who this person is and some of this stuff. So it's like, the power of AI is just going to keep getting more and more. Like originally when it first came out, it was great for photos, not so great for video, and now it's like almost just as good.
I think it's something we have to embrace as whether you're a client, whether you're in the industry, it's definitely something we have to embrace. But I think we have to remember to keep the human component to it and make sure that we're being engaging and we're being creative and we're using it as a tool, not a complete solution.
Yeah. Well, and again, kind of thinking back to some of our past conversations and in the level of space that we're wanting to operate in the industry, clients are wanting that personal touch. So I think that there's levels of it in the industry where, so maybe if you're running, say, like a volume wedding photography business where, maybe you had like 10 photographers that worked for you and you're shooting 10, 15 weddings every weekend. Like I could see utilizing an AI editing program to go through and like call all those images and all that would be huge time saver. I think when you get into those like more elevated, like what we labeling the luxury weddings or that type of thing, I think those photographers need to have more of a hands-on approach. So maybe you're using it to, you took 10 shots of one family picture and AI helps you pick out the best expressions and, that type of thing. It's a great tool for that. But I would, at that level, I certainly would not feed an entire wedding into it and rely on it to make all the choices for me.
Well, or at least making sure you're really double checking it thoroughly.
Right. Or giving it, like if you're able to program the AI to give it your unique style too, in the way that you edit.
Yeah, because I think every photographer has a different style of editing, whether you're light and airy or more natural or, dark and moody. I mean, I think there's
tones that you like.
I think there's a lot there.
Which, I mean, I'm sure it's getting better and better at knowing those things, just like it, learns your brand, it learns your conversation. So it's going to start learning those things too. So
as a planner, I don't worry from a standpoint of it like taking my job because like it's not going to come and bustle your dress. It's not going to come and steam your linens. It's not going to come and, put out all your place cards.
Yeah.
I think there's so much value to our position and what we do. I don't worry about it from that standpoint. I worry honestly more about the misinformation that couples will get and then where they're questioning my experience or questioning what I'm saying when I know, when I've actually been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
Because you just don't know where that information is coming from.
True. Or like if they're trying to fact check things with budget or this or that, and then like it's not relevant to either the venue or the area or
the guest count, any of it.
So many factors.
But it's even like, look, when you look online, what do you see? The average wedding is, I think right now it's saying it's like $34,000. I haven't done a $34,000 wedding and I can't tell you how long.
Maybe we need to have a challenge for you.
No.
Like, we're going to give you a $40,000 budget. Let's see what you can do.
I need at least 50.
You can only use AI.
No.
You have to,
oh my God. No.
So AI, the whole thing, like just, no photographer, no video.
No, that's okay. I'll pass.
With it, so.
No, but I mean, it's just not true. I think there's, even when couples come to me and they say, okay, what's this wedding going to cost me? I don't know. Like, I don't know. Do you want a band? Do you want a DJ? Right. Like, there's so many different things you have to take into consideration. Every wedding budget's different. And that's why I think AI can't really predict that. Unless you're making every decision and you're telling it, they have no idea.
Yeah. There's too many variables and so many things that you're able to bring to the table is based on past experience and your knowledge of the venue or the vendors you're working with and like all that. So that it can't replace is your intuition, your past experience, the knowledge that you have of your clients' personalities and their wants and wishes and all those things. Like I
think that's the same a little bit for photography too and video, right? Like you're going to capture a moment that people might not see as happening or know that's important. I think there's just an eye for that, right? Like there's a level of creativity and that you've honed over the years, right? Like you've gotten better with time. And I think that's something that can't be mimicked.
Yeah. Is it going to just try to put everybody into the same box?
Yeah.
Like this is what AI thinks a wedding should look like.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's the other thing. It'll make all weddings look alike.
Feel very generic.
Right. Very, very generic. And for us, we really want to come from a place of personalizing. Like when you walk into this wedding, I want it to very much feel like your wedding and feel like people who know your family and know you be like, oh yes. Like I would expect nothing less from them.
Yeah.
And so I think when you're looking at AI, it can be a little bit generic.
For sure. How much time are you putting into like learning the AI or the new technology that comes into it? Because I heard,
little.
Yeah, I forget. Like and I'd have to go back and check this too. But there was somebody talking about that like as business owners and things, like you really need to make sure you're being strategic about dedicating X amount of time every week to learning it and to just staying up with it and the changes in it. And so
I think there's a place for it and I use it in that place. I still think for me, being connected to my clients is the biggest thing. And hearing what their wants and their wishes are and trying to make those things happen, you just can't replace that. So I'll use AI on the back end, for email, for, to create a document, but we're still double checking everything, triple checking everything, because for us, these events, you can't get a redo.
Yeah.
You don't get another wedding. You don't get another corporate conference. I mean, you can have another one, but not without spending the money, right? Yeah. So for us, we really want to make sure that even when we're using AI, that we're double checking it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's interesting to me, and we can kind of close with this thought too, because I know we're getting close to the end here, but it's interesting to me that people are now starting to think about the ethical side and the responsibility, not just for our environment, but other things of like overutilizing AI. So you think about like how much energy that it takes, like how much water it uses, the impact that it has on our environment. And so much of like what is being used for is just unnecessary.
Yeah. I agree.
We're like, what color socks should I wear today? What man, so
listen,
it's like, I think
with someone who has decision fatigue, I'll take some decisions being made for me. I make so many in a day.
But that's going to bring up a whole nother thing for the future for, these next generations. Is
they won't be able to make any decisions because they're going to have to ask, ChatGPT or whoever it is at that
and
time.
And it's going to be all just integrated into every little bit of technology.
Everybody will be dressed the same because they'll all be getting the same response.
Right.
But I mean, I hope that our industry uses it wisely, and I hope our clients use it wisely and use it as a tool, not as a complete solution. I think at the end of the day, all of these moments, whether it's a baby shower, a wedding, a corporate event, whatever it is, there's nothing better than the human connection.
For sure.
And that's what we need to stay focused on and making sure that we're doing that. These weddings are for you to be with your family and your friends and have these moments in front of each other. Authentic. So while I think it's a great tool, I think we need to stay focused on having that human connection.
Yeah. So what do you feel like 50-50? It's pretty neutral AI right now.
I mean,
pros, cons.
I mean, for us, it's like a 30% deal. Like I'll use it a little bit and we will stay up on it as we need to. But I also want to keep expectations real. I also want to keep my connections real. And so it's not anything that I'm ever just going to use 100% of. Yeah. What about you? You feel the same?
I agree. I think I'm still kind of like in the middle, I think, with it being, you got to be careful how you use it, but at the same time, like, we just have to embrace the fact that it's here and it's a tool. And like, if we can use it to make us more efficient and better at what we do, and I'm for that. So
okay. Awesome. Well, this is a good
conversation.
A good topic,
I think it's going to be woven into many of our future conversations.
Yes. Unfortunately,
this is great though. Yeah.
Awesome.
Good stuff.
Thanks for watching.